Welcome to the 1978 podcast with Liza Cohen. Hi, Liza.
Hi, Alex.
You and I have something that is very special. We've both seen each other's genitals. No.
Have we?
No.
I feel like I've seen yours.
Oh.
I think I've seen yours.
I don't think so. Not
yeah,
that I
I'm
recall.
pretty sure I have.
I know
I feel
that
like you would run.
I've walked in the room to you showing me your boyfriend's genitals.
No, I haven't.
Yes, that has happened. That has happened. I have a vivid.
I have no clue what you're talking about, and never happened.
I deny. There are probably, with most people, there are probably not too many people in your lives, unless you have a big family and you live in the same house that you've lived in, but there's probably not too many people that have a lot of people in their lives who they've known since, if you're like over 40 or whatever, that you've known since you were in your teens.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And that's an interesting thing, is to kind of have this, I guess a good word would be history.
I think that's the clearest
And to be
way to explain it. Yeah.
Yeah. And to be able to call upon that and say, you know, like if I go to work and I haven't been at work in a long time, but you know, you go somewhere and you interact with somebody who you've known for a week or a year, there's so little backstory that it's almost, I guess, speaking for myself, hard to come up with things to talk about. It's like ongoing trying to break the ice.
Right.
Sometimes for days, until you kind of get a rhythm or get to know them well enough, or something comes up between the two of you, something difficult maybe that you can both relate to. Then you've got that thing now. You're like, oh, we both had to deal with that boss.
Mm-hmm.
It was funny, and we both realized how stupid they are. Now we have this thing we can both connect to. But
right. Yeah.
But when you have someone that you're like met in your teens and you're in your 40s, it's weird. It's so different, and it's I'm really glad I have that.
Yeah.
You can imagine living life and being like, yeah, I don't know anybody. The person that I've known the longest, I've only known for a year or two. It wouldn't be the end of the world, but it would be a little bit of a bummer.
Yeah. And I think it's, there are people, I think part of like building a relationship with somebody is, well, when you're younger, you think you're invincible, right? So you have that to connect with, and you guys, like, I think especially for friends like us, like we were crazy. We were like fly by the seat of our pants, and whatever kind of like whatever wild or crazy idea we would come up with, we'd be like, we're going to do it now, so you have that that similar like no cares in the world, nothing to hold you back, and
people, and you live through that, and you can compare then to now.
Mm-hmm. And I think too, like for me, so I moved halfway across the country 12 years ago. And so I moved
from California
to Wisconsin, to Milwaukee. And that was like leaving all history behind and having to start. Right. And like having to start new. And that's something that has come up for me a lot, especially, and now living where I live and like creating a life and building relationships. I've built that, and I have really good friends who I've been friends with for 7-8 years, but there really is something about having those friendships that have watched you grow up rather than just being an adult.
Yeah.
And
can you talk about that for a second, actually, because
sure.
I moved around a good amount, but so you were how old were you when you moved to Wisconsin?
29. 29. 29.
So it's like you uprooted yourself at that age to a city that you probably never been to.
One time.
Okay.
Yeah.
You didn't have any family there, right? It was just
nope.
for your husband.
So my husband was born and raised in Milwaukee, and we met in California, got pregnant with my first son, who's going to be 13. I have a 13-year-old. So weird.
As a friend, I can't see it on you. Like, I can't see that you have a son that's there. I know it's true, but you know, if you look at someone you don't know with a kid, you're like, that's a mom.
Yeah.
I don't know. And then I look at you, I'm like, I know you're a mom, but you're not a mom. You're just Liza. Like,
right. But like, and that's the funny thing. That's like, okay, so I digress. I'll go back to that, because I think there's an important like point in that too, is like the fact that we've been friends for so long. However, there is like this big gap in our life that like we haven't gotten to see each other move into those different roles, like husband, wife, father, mother, you know, and
job or lack of job or
right.
Yeah.
So, but anyways, we had our youngest son.
What I wanted to hear is your personal experience with your family and everything, but your experience of uprooting at that age. And you get along, you're a little bit more social than most people, but it's still a big deal to try to, especially you had girlfriends that you'd had since you were very young that you moved away from. You had to basically kind of find new friends, right?
Yeah, it sucked. I hated it at first.
Oh, really?
Like the first year that we lived in Wisconsin, I was like, I hate it here. I want to move home. I mean, I loved my in-laws and my like Julio side of the family. Yeah. Like, but you're right. Like somebody who really, like, my friends have always been my family. I come from a small family. So that has, I mean, like when I would talk about you, I would be like, oh, he's like my brother. You know, we have been through things that like have forged those bonds of like brother and sisterhood. Like we fought like brother and sister.
Exactly. I was gonna say,
you know,
I fight like a brother and sister.
So,
Aller.
My 9-year-old is FaceTiming me from downstairs.
Rather than walk downstairs, he'd say, right. Mom, give me something to drink.
Or he's asking for more time on his iPad.
More minutes.
We've lost all like sense of routine in our household during the stay in place has happened. So it's like, what time do you go to bed? I don't know. What have you ate breakfast? Great. Yeah. You ate? Awesome. That's all I care about.
Oh, there's food inside your stomach?
Yeah.
Good job, buddy.
Perfect.
High five.
Meanwhile, I have like all kinds of breakfast food and fruit and everything. I'm like, why are the chips or the popsicles the things that you go to?
Chips. Please. The go-to for a teenager.
Yeah.
What'd you eat?
So,
all that healthy shit? Nah, not for me.
Right.
Chips.
I know. So anyways, I like, as somebody who is very social and really like has those strong connections to people and like really good friendships, you know, I was in a place that the right decision was moving for my family. But it was like that you have to like make that adult decision, right? Like go from
your fam. That was the priorities, as your kids and everything, right?
Mm-hmm. And like I knew that I was giving my kids the best life possible by moving away, because freaking Silicon Valley is insane.
Well, that's, you know, there's similarities there to when I moved from the Bay Area to LA. Just personally for me, it was like, I've got to do more. I need more rope to pull. I need more.
Yeah.
I need more to do. I need to grow. And I couldn't
I think it's
up there. But
I think it's easy, like when you are born and raised in a certain area, or you forge like really strong friendships and relationships and roots in an area, it's easy to get stuck in that or to stay in that because it's comfortable, right? Nobody likes to be uncomfortable. But I've always been somebody who has been like, I don't know, like questioned the status quo, if that makes sense.
In what way?
Like, well, if everybody's going left, I go right.
You really? I'm not being sarcastic, but I sense that a little bit. Mostly, I feel like you're a go with the flow, but not in a like a sheepish way, but more.
No, I mean it. I don't mean it like, yeah, I am really laid back. Actually, I'm like, well, I am laid back, and it's really more because I hate making decisions about things. Because I have this like low level anxiety that has always like driven me. But no, I just am like, I never want to do what everybody else is doing, because
I don't either.
Like it
but
just,
I think I know what you mean. It's not that I don't want, if everyone says, let's go to the beach and it's your friends, cool.
No, I don't mean it like that.
You know, everyone's going to this college and getting a degree, or everyone's going to this thing and this way of life, and you kind of just got to be like everyone. Like that's the thing. You're like, no.
That's what I'm
find my own way.
Right. And that's like, when I told everybody that we were moving to the Midwest, they were like, what? Why would you do something like that? Why would you leave? Why? You know, it was like, nobody liked the idea of me leaving. And that kind of like drove my decision a little bit more, in the sense of like, not that I have something to prove. And I think that's the thing, is like, I've always kind of lived like, I don't really have anything to prove to anybody except for myself. And I like to like know what's beyond just what's in front of me. Like I feel like I've been like a searching soul, or
what do you call
like, I never want to not do something, or like, because I'm afraid to do it. Do you know what I mean? Like that has, like, my fear in doing things has always given me more motivation to do that.
Well, I think that a way to help describe that, and I totally get what you're saying, is the inverse of that, which would be scarier to me, would be the person who is born in a house, or born and lives in that house, grows up in that house, parents die, takes ownership of the house, and then grows up and stays in that house.
Yeah.
Like, to me, it's like, dude, there's an entire world out there.
Exactly.
See more of the state you're in, or the country, not to mention other countries. I mean, the very little bit of traveling I've done, it makes me want to go do so much more, because
I agree.
When you see these different ways of life, and it's almost like addicting, because you're like, wow, that's interesting, and that's not even that crazy of a place. Let's go see, let's go to Guatemala, or let's go to like some Aztec thing and see this old stuff. You just want to experience. It would be very sad. It would be more scary to stay still, than to the fear of, going out and trying the new thing, for sure.
I don't like staying safe.
Yeah.
That is not my, like, that, like you said, like, that is scarier to me than finding out what is about the unknown, like, so, and that's kind of like, I think that's part of, like, those adventures are exciting to me. Like, what am I going to learn about myself? What am I going to learn about other people? Or how is this going to help me navigate other situations,
Absolutely.
So, and
that's part of the reason I like working freelance type of work in the industry that I work in, is because it's always new. Some things stay fairly similar, but environments and people and situations change daily.
Yeah.
And that says something about my personality, and I don't know how to describe that, but it sounds like hell to go to a bank and sit in a chair that you've sat,
right.
or a cubicle or something. It's like, dude, I know there's
I
people
agree.
who are okay with that. I'm not knocking it. But for me personally, I'm just like, if I knew that my entire week and the week after that and so on, I'm going to sit in this thing, I'm going to do this thing.
Yeah.
I'm going to go to lunch and that person's going to be sitting there. I'm going to go in the refrigerator and get the thing like every fucking day. I'd be like, nah, I'm good. I don't care how much money. I can't just keep doing the thing.
Yeah.
It would drive me insane.
Well, money has never been like a huge motivator to me anyways.
Yeah.
So I mean, it is, right? We all need it to survive in this capitalistic country that we live in. But
if you're smart and you weigh it out, you know that in the long run, if you're just trading your time for money, then you got to make that time be something that's worth living through.
Exactly.
Other than just,
and I like,
you know,
I realize too that this is a huge privilege that I have, like that I can be like that, you know, like
privilege that you can be like that.
Yeah, like it's like there's a lot of privilege in the fact that I can like work in the job that I feel like I want to work in, or move to a state that I want to move to. Whereas a lot of other
privilege
people,
in the sense that you live in a country that allows that, but I don't see that as privilege as in you decide anybody can pick up and do whatever they want. I mean, in this country and around the world, you can still decide I'm going to go from X to Y or go to these.
Right, but I think that I have access to resources that.
Are you talking about specifically when you moved from California to Wisconsin?
Yeah, I think so. I think,
like, what was the privilege though? Like what exactly?
The financial means to do it.
Okay.
The access to resources to do it. The like the education of, you know, having the support to do it. I think there's a lot of different things that go into that. I think there are a lot of people who would like to travel, but don't know how to get started, you know, like don't know how to pick up and leave because whatever it is that anchors them into the place that they're at.
Or, you know, there's probably plenty of people who the fear or some sort of personal internal block is too much for them to overcome in some way.
Yeah.
Like if you told me, okay, I'm going to get in a van, we're going to drive around the world, I'm going to have some degree of me is going to say, shit, that's crazy. What if?
Right.
You know,
but you wouldn't do that now because you have a family, you have responsibilities, you have people, you know, who depend on you.
Absolutely. Metaphorically, if I didn't have a family and it was just me and I could pick up and go and there was no problem doing it, and somebody or whatever is like, hey, I got this fucking cool van. It's got a bed. We can just sleep in it and we're just going to go for a month.
Yeah.
I'd still be hesitant, but it'd probably just be because of fear.
Of course.
And so I guess the point I was making is, yes, you're privileged, but I'd say it's a combination of you do have means, but you've also got like balls and you know that if you're going to pick up and go to Wisconsin or do something that is a big deal, that it takes research and finances and time to get it right, you know? So
right.
You do, along with the sort of being modest, you should also take credit, I think.
Well, I don't think for me, it doesn't feel like it's a matter of modesty. It's more a matter of like recognizing that I have something that a lot of other people don't have.
Yeah.
And like realizing that I have a situation that it like is not uncommon. People move all the time everywhere, right?
Yeah.
But that I was able to do it without like too many strings holding me back.
Yeah, I mean, I see where you're coming from. I don't disagree with you.
Yeah.
But I think that there's something to be said about the fact that you did think it through and you said, I know what needs to be done right now, and you took action, not just for yourself. So there's a selflessness to it, and a problem solving, methodical thing that you should.
That's because I think that I was taught those tools to be able to do that. I didn't just like come up with that on my own. Like that wasn't, I think that I was, like, I mean, we could get really deep with this. And
well, here's a comparison. So you made a big move and it took means, financial, you needed probably help from family in different ways. But you did it in the right way. And it's, if you think of how many different ways somebody could up and move and do it the right way, the wrong way.
I don't think there is like a right or a wrong way. I think it's just everybody's on their own path. And however, because I've moved a lot of times, I moved from Northern California to Southern California for a month. And that was like,
well, look at how that went. Look at that as an example. So same person, two moves that were both, they're both big moves. One's further than the other, but ultimately they're two far enough places apart that you had to sort of reestablish a new everything, where you go to get gas and groceries and your address and all that. So, but one of them, and I'm not asking you to go into detail, but one of them had a lot more going on and was finite. It like happened and it stayed that way. The other one, the wheels kind of came off,
I just think that there was for various reasons, like, and that's what I'm saying is that like sometimes, when you're like, life is not linear,
exactly. So you go off to the left and to the right.
Right. So like there's, you have different experiences and then you learn from those experiences and then you move forward. And like, if you have like, for me, I've always been the type of person that's like, well, I don't like how that felt, so I'm not going to do that again. I've been able to like, I have to learn things the hard way, but once I learn that lesson, I really try not to repeat that again, because I don't like being uncomfortable. I don't like pain. I pretty much like being like, try to like.
Do you ever think, I've thought in the past, I guess mostly when I was younger, but about people that can learn from someone telling them something, and then they actually learn from that and they apply that.
That's so weird.
I have never been able, someone doesn't say, never do this. If it comes down to my dad will say, don't do the thing. And I go in the backyard and I'm like,
I'm going to go do the thing.
And then I get fucked up and I'm like, okay, now I know.
Right. I think that's one of the things that I've learned too about parenting is that like, I think our parents like come like because of their generation that they came from, it was like really fear-based, right? It's like
fear from their parents.
Like, or, like the boomer generation, right? So like they experienced, I mean, we've experienced so much shit too, but, everything was like, don't do drugs in the 80s.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Don't do this. Like, if somebody gives you a like tab with a really pretty print on it, don't take it, it's acid. Or,
don't talk to strangers and don't go on the alley.
Halloween candy, like, everything was like, don't do this. And I think that like informed like my like.
But did you listen though? Like you listened to that and applied that?
So like okay, how do I put this? Like, I don't want to be the type of parent who tells my kids, don't do this, it's really bad. You know what I mean? Like, this is kind of like a morbid way to put it, but like, I like to give my kids enough rope to hang themselves.
I get what you're saying. You want to let them experience. You don't want to shut them out, but you also don't want them to hit their head really hard on something.
Right. But what I want to be is, if they do hit their head really hard, they always know that they have a soft place to land with me. And that like,
that's a really good way to put it.
That, you know, I'm not going to say like, well, I told you shouldn't have done that, you know.
God.
Like I will guide them and hopefully guide them in a way that they are able to make sound decisions. But like, I also remember what it was like to be a kid and be fucking stupid.
I could attest.
So,
yes. Yeah.
Right. So I think that like
personality is it personality based? I think for myself, I know that my personality is such that, and I'm not like this rebel that's like, fuck you, man, I'm doing it. It wasn't that.
Right.
It was more just like, I want experience. I guess when I was a kid, I didn't really see it this way. I just subconsciously felt it. I couldn't articulate it until, you know, you get older. But it was, I mean, I just came up with 3 ideas in my head where someone, most likely my mom or dad, said, don't go to this spot, don't climb on that hill, and don't go on that rock, or don't ride your bike like that, or whatever, or don't climb in that tree. But I ended up climbing the tree and falling and breaking my arm. I ended up riding my bike. Not only did they say don't go up the hill thing on foot, I went up there and rode my bike down. You know,
after you broke your arm?
No, I'm just saying like separate incidents.
Oh, okay.
They don't want me climbing around the tree, you know, and they don't want me walking up there. And not only do I walk, I bring my bike and ride down, and then I crash and scrape. You know, it's like, it was like, I don't know what you call it. I mean, I guess it's hard-headed or something, but it was almost like, in a way, them saying, or I guess I would say, they may have been warning me, but I almost heard it like a challenge. Like, don't do that thing.
Right.
And like, maybe it's,
well, now you have the like benefit of having hindsight and also being a parent and being able to look back, and like when Rory falls down, it like hurts your soul, right?
Totally.
You're like, oh my God, like you're hurt and I need to fix it for you. And it sucks so bad. But like, so like, I know that like, that's where our parents were coming from, is they don't want us to get hurt. It wasn't that they didn't want us to do it because they don't want us to have fun, or they don't want us, you know, like, because as a parent, it like bums you out when your kids are hurt or in pain or like whatever it is, you know? And like, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I was just you gave me an idea. Was your childhood, I mean, everyone's childhood is different. I could speak for myself, but was your childhood full of love and like warmth, or was it mostly like hard learning and hard love?
My mom was super, super loving. And I mean, you know, my mom, like you knew her, she was like really, you know, that's like a double-edged sword question.
Did you have because like your mom was the loving and the dad side was?
No, it was like, well, you know, I was raised by my stepdad.
Right.
So, I mean, he was my dad, really.
Yeah. But in those days when you were like 5, 9, 10, 11, when you're like, when they needed to teach, not just parent, but actually teach every day. Were those days?
Like I just told this story to Diego, my 13-year-old, who, we were talking about feminism, and like we were watching Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez's response in Congress to that whole thing, and so then we got into this conversation of like feminism. Which is powerful,
by the way, no matter boy, girl, whoever you were, that's really powerful.
Freaking queen. I'm obsessed with her. So, we were like, I lost my train of thought.
Alexandria Cortez.
Yeah, we were talking about feminism, and I was telling Diego this story that happened to me when I was a little kid, and what I was translating to like Diego was that like he has a responsibility as a man to not uphold systems of oppression that keep women down, right? And so we were, and I was telling him, I was like, women experience these like oppressive, like gross things happen to them from like little kids. And so I remember like being 9 years old and walking home, and this old dude like said some nasty stuff to me. And I ran home. I wasn't far from my house, but I ran home, and my mom was like 9 months pregnant with my sister. She was on bed rest. And I told my mom what happened, and I was terrified that I hid behind the bed. And my mom like got up, went charging down the street,
Really?
like chasing after this old senile dude.
Wow.
And like raged turns out that there was a like convalescent home by our house that he like wandered away from. And he probably had Alzheimer's or something, like, you know, he like wasn't cognitively there. And so my mom like went to the home and raged them and was like made this like huge deal about it. And I remember like that was like one instance that I remember feeling like, oh man, like my mom has my back no matter what. Like so protected, you know, like she would murder somebody. And like this dude just like made a comment to me, but it freaked me out, you know? And so
all you ever hear is don't talk to strangers. And as a kid, you get in your head that God knows what it could mean. And then that moment happens where a stranger says something and probably sounds like it was extra creepy feeling.
Mm-hmm.
You're like, this is the thing. This is what they told me. Get the fuck
out. Okay, where's my handbook?
Flipping through pages. Hold on, dude. Hold on.
I know there's something I'm supposed to do right now.
This isn't right. This isn't right.
Right.
As a girl, I think that it's unfortunately, as a girl growing up, you're not necessarily more susceptible, but I think that and this is me guessing as a man, but just from my experience, I think.
Go ahead and mansplain it to me.
Listen, lady, you need to understand. I think you're more susceptible because I think guys are just creepier on average. So as a girl, you're probably more apt to get harassed in some way rather than a guy getting harassed by a woman or even maybe a guy. That's what I think.
Yes, that's correct.
So it kind of sucks, you know. It's like
literally walking down the street a year ago or 2 years ago, I was walking from my husband's shop to my kid's school, which is like 3 blocks away, and some dude pulled over and like made some nasty comment to me. And
Jesus Christ,
I was like, can't I just live my life? I'm just walking to get my kids, you know? And so, and I think that's like, I mean, we're getting way off topic right now, but
you know, it's in the world,
that's like, so I would say like to bring it back to parenting, right? And to like, kind of like, that's what I'm trying to teach my boys is that like, they don't have to like, well, number one, they won't be like that. I know that just because of who they are as people now. But like I said earlier, is like, you have a responsibility as a man to make sure that you're not holding up these like pillars of oppression in all ways. And so
I think it's even better that it's coming from you. I mean, obviously it's probably coming from both you guys, but that it's coming from you is good. I guess it has different meaning. If it comes from the dad, it can feel one way. Anything, not just like feminism, but like when
kids learn by example, right?
What I'm talking about is hearing advice on touchy subjects or heavy subjects from your parents. Because I know when I was 13, I mean, I think you guys are probably better at that than my parents were. I think my parents came from like a Midwest sort of hard.
Yeah, you don't talk about anything. Like,
yeah, it was all hard love in my world.
Yeah. Yeah.
My mom was gentler, but she would leave a lot of it to my dad. And my dad was hard love.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
I know your dad. I was scared of your dad.
one of the most funniest, I don't know if I want to put him on fucking on blast or whatever, but like, memory wise, God, some of the funniest moments of my life that my dad thought were dead serious, but were like infamously funny, and probably to this day, if I bring I'm not gonna hang him out to dry, but like moments where my friends will be sleeping over, and I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. And so he'd do something because we'd be too loud, and he'd deal with it, but he'd deal with it his way. And it was like, from that point on, it was like, oh, remember Alex's dad? And that my dad is like, you know, in his eyes, it's dead. Anyway.
No, I know.
I came from that hard, like you know, there's love there, but it was like, you know, get the F out there and get it done.
Right.
But you know, in a shitty way, you know, that they're saying, I want to show you that hard work pays off. But I got taught it in a bad way, I think. And
I think as like
the plus side from that, I'm sorry, just to cap that off.
Oh yeah.
The upside from that is that I see the way that I don't agree with doing it, and then I'm going to do it the way I feel like has more foundation.
Yep. And that's what I was going to say, is that I parent, there are a lot of things that I do similar to how I was parented, and there is so much that I do so differently as a parent. And like, and I only got to this point through lots of therapy.
Oh, really?
But like realizing
therapy, like honestly.
Oh yeah.
Oh, really?
For sure. Yeah. No, I love therapy. I couldn't
hang with it. I tried it once because it was there was like a Kaiser thing covered in an insurance. I was like, you go talk to this person. And I just going and sitting in this room with this person I don't know. I'm like, why am I telling you about my life?
Well, first of all, it's not for everybody. And second of all, it's really, you have to find the right therapist. It's like, there's the thing about finding the right person who you feel like it's comfortable with. And it is awkward at first because you are talking to somebody who you don't know. But when you find that right relationship and you can get past that, it is like, for me, it's just been, I mean, because, you know, like there's been a lot of shit in my life that is then.
Are you to the point where you trust this person and you can tell them anything and you cry and it's all good and you feel better when you leave?
Yeah. And sometimes I feel shitty when I leave too, but like, it's, you know, it's hard work. It's like doing self discovery, but it's also, I want to be the best version of myself so that I can make sure that I'm not leaving my kids with residual trauma, you know?
That's great. Like, you know how many, if every parent was really true to that statement and did that, like how great or how much
our world would be.
Yeah.
That would be.
There's so many kids that are in a situation everywhere.
I know. And I think that's what I'm talking about too, because like, so like working in education, which is what I do now, and working in a school district that is like economically disadvantaged. And there are a lot of children who come from like horrible situations, and really, like, I think that's what I mean about having the privilege, is to like, so I went back to school for social work, right? And I always think about this story that one of my teachers told us about And the story is that she used to do house calls.
Teacher that told you when you went back to school, or
yeah, one of my professors in school. So she told me this story about she used to go on house calls, like do house checks while when she was a social worker. And she'd just go and like hang out and check in and see how everybody was doing. And this family, it was the mother, a grandmother, and then the kids. And so the grandma was making, it was the daughter, the mother, and then the daughter's kids. So I guess, yeah, grandma. Okay. So they were making a chicken, and the mom cut the like last third of the chicken off, like the butt of the chicken off, and put it in the pan. And my professor was like, "Why are you doing that?" And she was like, "I don't know. This is just how my granny always did it. So this is how I do it now." And my professor was like, "Next month when I come back, I want to know the reason. Like, you need to call Granny and ask her why you guys do that." And so the next month she came back, and she was like, "Okay, why does Granny cut the last half of the chicken butt off of the chicken before you put it in the pan?" And the mom was like, "Well, when Granny was growing up, their pan wasn't big enough to fit the chicken in. And so they would just cut the last part of the chicken off to make it fit in the pan. And so that's just how she was taught how to do it. And so that's how it was passed down to us." And I've always thought about that story and thought about how, like, we learn things and we don't question why they're done. We just do them because that's how we were taught how to do them, right? And so I think, like, for you and I think about that in, like, we are really lucky, and because we do question things and we push things to the limit, or, we're not always happy with, like, why someone tells, like, we need to find out for ourselves why it needs to be done that way. And a lot of people don't have that, like they don't have the, like, what is the word that I want to say?
Curiosity?
Not even that. They just don't have the resources to be able to question why things are done. Like, because they're stuck in a certain place.
Like Granny's pan, she only had that size, so she can't really try another size. So she just cut the chicken.
Right. Right. No, maybe they didn't have money to buy a new pan or whatever it is, And so I think about that, like, and that is a lot of what informs, like, the parent that I am, and also, like, the person that I am too. I think, like, even when I was 10 years old playing baseball, I was the only girl on my baseball team. And at the end of the season, I got an award for most questions asked.
Hey, good job, baseball player, for asking questions. Good job. That's what we're after around here.
The next year, I played softball.
Yeah, softball sounds like something that makes more sense to me.
Right.
Less question.
But I think sometimes it can be annoying to the people around me. Like, and I'm sure, like, it bugs the shit out of Julio sometimes, because I'll be like, "Well, why are you doing it like that?" And it comes across as, like, a judgmental way, I think. But like, for me, I'm not being judgmental. I really am curious, as, like, maybe you know a better way than what I know.
Yeah.
And
have you heard that Neil deGrasse Tyson? I've heard.
No, I don't listen to science.
Yeah, fuck science. I end up watching his videos here and there, and he's got a podcast and everything, and he ends up answering questions from fans and stuff, and he'll repeat, ask the same type of question, and he has a lot of go-to answers that cover sort of a blanket sometimes of area of question. And in that Q&A, sometimes he will go to this sort of descriptive situation where he says, compare what you were like as a child to now, kind of relating back to kind of what we're talking about, where he says, when you're a kid, you know, like, and I've seen my daughter do this. She'll just grab a handful of dirt and go over here and put it in that cup. And then she'll go get a leaf and put it over here and then put those two cups together and then pour the thing in and then go get some water. And there's no rhyme or reason. It's just sort of this experimental, what's going to happen. I don't even know what I'm doing. I'm having a good time. I'm entertaining myself, but they're just trying different things and there's no real way yet, but they're discovering new things to them. And we lose that a little bit as adults. We get into this thing where it's like, my keys are next to my bed and the car's here and my cell phone plugs in there and you put the thing there and you drive and then you come home, you put the keys back, you get in the shower, you sit there, the plate's in the same, and there's no experimentation. There's no trying new things, where there's probably a strong possibility if you tried something new or change it up or rearrange the living room or something, that you might feel like it's easier to move through the room. Or if you park different or you adjusted something, that life might be better or easier to, you know, go day to day in your routine. But we don't try stuff really as adults. Some might, but I would say on the whole, most adults are set in their ways and that's it. And sadly tell their kids, don't do this, don't do that, and stop them from trying things, which reduces their experiences and reduces their learning. And that you let your kids go to the point where they're about to do something wrong potentially and then stop them, rather than stopping them when they take that.
Well, I just try to be really honest with them. And like, you know, it's so different when you have like a child who's Rory's age, who, like you said, is discovering things, and you want to let them, that's how they learn. And then as they get older, I mean, I'm not an expert on parenting, but what I've found now, and what I think Julio and I have always really tried to do, is be honest with them. And when they ask us a question, there are some times where I'll say, especially to Diego, like, do you want to know the answer to that? Like, do you want the truth?
Like, if you say that, have they basically figured out that is a
there are sometimes being answered? Well, right. I mean, there are sometimes when he has been like, nah, I'm good. And then I'll say, okay, well, when you're ready for the answer, you can just come back and ask me. And I'm also, I told you it was going to happen again. There's my phone. Yeah. Hopefully it's still recording.
That's probably fine.
I got a phone call. Oh, yeah, no, it's not.
Yeah. All right. There goes that.
I'll start recording again.
No, it's fine. Just wrap it.
Are you sure?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
When you present these questions to, like what I was going to say is, so when you were, let's say in your teens, for myself, I never thought about having kids. I never was like, this is the when I'm going to find a wife. I'm going to 1, 2, 3 in the steps.
Yeah.
But I know that Lauren kind of had more of a, like, you know, the points that she wanted to hit. She may not know when they're going to happen, but she was like, got to make
sure. She knew
this
was going to get married and have a baby. And
I was like,
yeah,
I guess marriage, what's that? I don't even, okay, cool. Let's go out drinking. Like, it was like, all right.
Yeah.
Once I found that moment, it was like, okay, this seems right. But I didn't plan it in any way, shape, or form. I didn't plan children in any way, shape, or form. I like kids. I was cool with it. It just was like, if it comes my way, great.
Yeah.
And
I was the same way as you.
Oh, okay. So you never thought to yourself, when I have kids, here's how I'm going to teach them or
never.
Okay.
No.
So where did you develop your way and how you do this? Where did that come from?
Instinct.
Okay. Could you attribute it to
an experience?
Could you attribute it to your?
So, like, well, I really tried to educate myself, and like through reading books and
about how to be a parent.
More so like about like raising good humans. And taking
picture kind of stuff.
Say that again.
Big picture, sort of educating yourself
right.
specifically about how to deal with a toddler or something like that.
Right. I mean, like, it just doesn't make sense to me to have, like, I've never done this before and like I'm just gonna wing it. Like, that doesn't feel like right to me, which I think a lot of,
I'm not laughing at you. I'm laughing because essentially that's what I did. I'll figure it out.
Yeah, but you also have a wife who is like,
she's the brain.
Probably did all of the same things that I did. And Julio defaults to me for a lot of that stuff, you know?
My wife is and she doesn't like this, but she's the one that like figures it out.
Yeah, she's your manager.
Yeah, I take orders and I help, but essentially without her, it's a wrap. It's gonna be a mess.
I think Julio would say, I mean, Julio calls me like his manager.
There you go. And you're okay with that?
Sometimes it's annoying, but most of the time I like it because I'm a control freak and I want to like have all the information and like he's the person, like, as much as I hate making decisions about things, I'll like compile all the information and then be like, okay, here you go. What should we do? And then he'll be like, just follow. And I would say, like, for parenting, I really follow like what my gut and my heart says. And I use my intuition as a parent and use the information that I've gained, I think, and then apply that. So, and know, like, how do I want to be treated? You know,
that's the good question right there. Yeah.
Like,
how would I like to be treated from my mom as a kid while still getting good, solid foundational information, but not have it feel like I'm being yelled at? Or
I want to make sure that my kids have their toolboxes full so that when they go out into life, they go out prepared and they're able to, like, they don't need to lean on me for anything. Like, I want them to know that they can and that I'll be there for them and support them in those ways. But I also want them to be able to, like, feel confident enough to do things on their own and not need me to, like, hold their hand every single step of the way.
I love hearing that because it's inspiring to know that, you know, there's a mom out there that says and thinks that. It's good. I mean, I guess there's definitely two things out there that are sort of sacred, and that's like kids and animals.
Yeah.
And it sounds super like I don't know it sounds kind of, I don't know.
Well, you're talking to a witch, so.
No, not witchy. Like it sounds, gushy or whatever you want to call it. It's like there's two things you should never.
Vulnerability is good, Alex. There's no judgment behind that.
Well, what I'm saying, thank you. I guess the point I'm trying to make is that there's kind of two things you shouldn't mistreat. It's animals and kids, because they don't have any ill intentions. They're just blank slates. They're innocent blank. They're not. I mean, I'm not talking about a great white shark. I'm talking about like puppies and cats. Like, like don't go around.
Great white sharks have feelings too,
But we cannot kick them and get away with it. You can kick a cat and get away with it. And so it's
that is terrible.
Those two things, it is terrible. But the point is that there's, kids above animals even more so are moldable by their parents, from all species. And to mistreat, like, if you think about what you've been talking about, and then when I see the mom with like one or two kids at Target, and the his face is covered in tears, and the tears have soaked in his shirt or her, and they just keep on crying. And while the crying's happening, this mess of a parent who obviously can't take care of themselves is screaming at the kid, shut up, shut up. That's abuse. And that kid's going to grow up, and they may not know why, but they're going to grow up with certain kinds of issues that are going to be hard to get over because of this pain that's been deeply rooted. And when someone screams shut up at them at lunchtime in high school, they're going to have this odd reaction or get themselves in trouble and who knows what. And you know, back to what we've been talking about, where it's like, you know, when you grow up, you learn certain things. And when you are ingrained and taught, and you take, even if it's not taught to you, you soak certain things in from your upbringing, and then you apply them. You've been talking about the way you try to parent, but I'd be willing to bet that deeply inside, no matter what book you read, you'd still be a good person to your kids, because I think that you had love and well-being given to you
for
by,
the most part. Yeah.
you know,
I definitely,
I know your mom was very loving and caring, and she showed things that make a good person, you know, and so if you read books, or if you hadn't read any books or anything, I still think that you have that in you. So part of the whole, you know, having friends from when you were a teenager to
oh, is that what we were talking about?
but also having a parent. Like, there's people, you know, who maybe they lost their blood, their biological mom, dad, or both at a very young age.
Right.
And even if they had good foster parents or whatever the case may be, are still going to be missing out on some aspect of their upbringing, because there's that hole that even if the foster parents were great, they know I never met my real mom, or I don't remember my real parent.
Yeah. Well, I try not to, like, I don't, you know, there's so many different, like, how do I put this? Like, I try not to, like, talking about, like, you know, when you see the mom in Target screaming in her baby's face, right? So somewhere along the line, that's how she was either spoken to or taught to parent, and doesn't have those tools to be able to, like, manage her own anger. And so
I'm not knocking this person. I'm just saying it's unfortunate that it's come to that. And I don't know how I'm not going to stop in Target and say, hey, lady, here's a better way to deal with your kid.
Yeah.
I don't have a solution for it. I just,
my mom did that one time.
I don't doubt it, but I get sad inside.
Right.
I get sad inside.
Yeah, of course.
Because of the vulnerability and the fact that kid doesn't even know what is going on.
Of course you do. Of course. That's because you're an empathetic person, and because you have knowledge that other people don't have, you know? So, but I was going to say too, is that, like, there are certain times in your life, especially growing up in, like, the developmental stages of childhood, that, and I can look back on this and look back on my childhood, and there were, like, times growing up where I didn't get the things that I needed because my parents had their own stuff that they were taking care of. And then there were times when they got better and were healthy and were able to provide the love and care that was given to me. And so, how do I put this? Like, there were, so there's, like, this, I forget what it's called, but it's like a test that you can take online, or it's like a psychological thing, but it's basically like goes through, like, I wish I could think of what it's called, but it goes through, like, traumatic things that happened to you in your childhood. Like,
test?
It's not like a test, but, like, it's like, it'll say, like, were you raised by an alcoholic? And if you were, you give yourself a point for that.
Is it something you can voluntarily do, or is it something in high school?
Yeah. Oh no, it's like a voluntary, you can search it up online.
In order to, like, kind of sort of evaluate your situation or something like that.
it's bugging me. I want to find out what it is now.
The purpose of it is something that an adult could say, I wonder why I'm having an issue. I'm going to take this test.
Right.
Find why.
Yes.
Okay.
And then like the higher your score is, the more like residual trauma that you'll come like out with. So I took that and I actually had a really high score.
Meaning you had a lot of trauma that you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so then
you do have a lot of like pain sources, I think. And I'm not trying to call you out, but you have a lot
of your life. It's not calling me out because I already know about all of it. Like I'm not trying to I'm honest about it too, you know. Right.
Everyone does. I just know you know you've got like some soft spots there that are tough, you know.
Of course. So and like through childhood, right? So like I had parents who were like super loving but they also had their own mental health issues and addiction issues, and that's, you know, that causes trauma and causes residual effects. And so so there's this test, but then there's also a co-test that goes along with it to show like how much support you have had. And so although I had a really high score in like the trauma area, I had a really high score in the love and support category, if that makes sense. And I like, if I could remember the name of this, then I would be able to speak on it more eloquently. But and so that I think is why I'm a better adjusted adult, if that makes sense.
Well, that makes total sense. You had a lot of this, but you had a lot of other stuff to counter it. So it kind
of exactly. Yeah. And so there are like, so I look at that and I'm like so grateful for that. And I was taught like, you know, although these shitty things happened, I also had a lot of good it mixed in with that, and I'm able to see that. And that some people don't have all that good, you know, so they just have all the shitty trauma, and that informs like who they are.
You know, look at some of the, I can't think of an example, but I know that I've seen documentaries and, you know, things of that nature of the person who grew up in South Africa and watched people in their family get murdered and turn out to become some sort of lawmaker and change things.
Or like Trevor Noah.
I don't know his story.
He's the host first of all, you have to listen to the Champs podcast. You will love it.
Is that his deal?
No, so the Champs is Neil Brennan and Moshe Kasher. And do you know who Neil Brennan is?
Comedian, right?
Yeah, and he wrote for the Dave Chappelle show.
Oh, okay.
So the Champs is no longer recording, but
all their episodes are still
all their episodes are amazing. You have to listen to them. So they interview a lot of comedians, a lot of comedians of color, but Trevor Noah did one of the episodes before he like did the Daily Show. It was like when he was just starting out, and he talks about how he grew up in South Africa during the apartheid, and how his dad is white and his mom was black, and that was illegal. And so like, yeah. And so like, and growing up in the, like you were saying, you know, like, and like how his path, you know, that's where he was raised and came from, and then moved, like now he's the host of the Daily Show, and he's a brilliant dude, you know.
That, to me, I'm not disqualifying anyone else's story at all, but because every story is unique. But if you were to gauge someone's sort of personal ability to overcome adversity, someone that grew up as a child with a massive amount of tragedy, pain, you know, seclusion, God knows what, you know, political problems, and to come out of that, not just to something of wealth, but to come out of that and do something that takes a lot of of time and strength and energy and perseverance to do,
Mm-hmm.
that says so much about character, because
I
I've
think it
met,
says so much about resilience.
yeah, that too, big time. And because I've met people who have had very little resistance, or very little pain, or opposition in their life, and they've had
Mm-hmm.
opportunity and
Mm-hmm.
still have done not much,
Mm-hmm.
and they really don't want to do a whole lot, and
Yeah.
there's just like zero. I don't feel bad for that person at all, and there's zero character there because they don't want to lift a finger.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of these people that, like Trevor Noah that you're talking about, they get so much activity around them, and people want to do things with them, and have them be a part of something, because when you show that you're somebody that has the ability to overcome, and you're like a mover shaker, kind of like get it done, kind of, people want to be
Mm-hmm.
around that. People want
Well,
you to do
yeah,
stuff and
for
be
sure. For
speak
sure.
your
Because
event.
like you want to be around somebody who's motivating to you,
Yeah.
and like in and have that inspiration, and it gives you like it's inspiring to see like where people come from and where they end up, and so of course we want to surround ourselves with good energy and um people who we aspire,
Yeah.
to
Well,
succeed.
like, look at, I I speak for myself. Um, Work wise, I end up going back to work because that's kind of the place that I've done a lot of personal growth.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
But I want to be around the people that are doing better,
mm-hmm,
and you can usually tell in a professional environment. I know where what I do is within, I don't know, even within 10-15 minutes, you can tell if somebody's like a getter done, I know what I'm doing, type of person, or even someone that I can learn from.
mm-hmm,
I can't learn anything from you, and I have to show you and help you.
mm-hmm,
As much as I'm willing to do that, I'd rather not do that at work, because it's it's like carrying someone's bags for them.
mm-hmm,
It's just like, I can't do my job and yours right now.
mm-hmm.
I'd
Yeah.
rather you be somebody. I'd rather surround myself with somebody who's like, Alex, pick up the pace, because we're doing this so efficiently and fast that you need to be better.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm like, oh, okay. And if I watch them, then I learn the little tricks and stuff, and I become better, and I learn more, and then I'm more valuable, and so on and so forth. So and I
I
didn't
think
learn that.
that's true for life
Yeah.
too. Is
Yeah.
that, you know, like, and that's, it's about like building boundaries and being able to say, like, this is what I have on my plate right now. And I can only take care of myself. Like, I can't change you. I can't help you to become like, like, how do I put this? Like, I think it's more about like, I say I think and I like a lot just for myself.
Well, there's a time and a place, and and I've found opportunities where I
Yeah.
have, I've even run into people again through work, that there are moments where you're like, okay, today is going to be a day where this person who is showing that they need help and they cannot do it on their own, I
Mm-hmm.
can afford the bandwidth to bring them to me, and then just kind of like say, okay, just do what I'm doing in a nice way. You have them kind of shadow a little bit. But
Mm-hmm.
then for the most part, there's days where you're like, I can't do that right now, because if I take on any more, then I'm going to lack in
Mm-hmm.
what I've been tasked to do.
Right. And that's knowing like who you are and what you're capable of,
Yeah.
and like being in self-care, like knowing that once you turn yourself inside out, like you're not going to be good for anybody. You're not going to be productive in any type of way, So it's about knowing
Sadly,
like what your limit is and how much energy you can expend before it starts to affect like your center of the world.
Yeah. In a non-work environment, it's different. In a work environment where you're on the clock and there's expectations, it's one thing, but
yeah,
that's one thing that bums me about this COVID thing is there's so many things I could be doing. I could
right.
be doing so many different things that, you know,
I am the opposite of you with that. Like, I am so grateful for the time that I have had during COVID. Like, I don't know when I would ever be able to spend this much time with my family.
Yeah.
My house is cleaner than it's ever been.
Don't get me wrong. I've been spending a lot of time with, actually, ironically, I made this whole video about like going from freelance to no work and the difference between these like 14-hour days and sleeping in on Saturday just to catch up. And then from that to like full-time seeing the wife and kid and doing stuff, going to the park, going for walks and like help her ride a bike and help her ride a scooter and go in the inflatable pool, like just every little thing and learning and exploring. So like, I'm not saying, don't get me wrong about that, but the point I'm trying to make is the reason I said there's so much I'd like to be doing is because we were talking about something, and the things that I can't do are the things that require like deep, close interaction with people.
Sure. Yeah.
And my wife has got a lot of anxiety, and she's like, I don't want you to go do the thing or do this or that or go to a store. And I don't disagree with her. It bums me out in a way. But at the same time, she wants us to not get sick and live. So it's like, I can't really disagree with.
I would say that Julio is more so like Lauren. And I think that speaks to our personalities of like, we really are like, we thrive off of interaction, and that's where we get our energy from and our inspiration from. And like, Julio is happy. Like, he could stay in the house for 30 days and not see anybody and he would be perfectly fine. And
Lauren's like, give me my TV and like snacks, my laptop. I'll just sit in bed and watch TV forever. Sleep.
Meanwhile, I'm like, what are we doing next? Okay. And like, I legitimately
feel like I'm in a bubble. Like, I'm like, I want to go do shit with people. That's my life, is like making things with other people. And I've done none of that. And I've had two like peak, like depressing moments where kind of the house of cards kind of fell apart. And it took me like 2 days to kind of like 2 or 3 days to stop having bad thoughts and get back positive. Like just do something, go for a run and kind of like just get up, move to like not feel like I'm in this hole, and
you got to do something to like interrupt that like thought process. And like, I legitimately have like diagnosed ADHD and generalized anxiety disorder. So I have like a lot of like, I have had to learn a lot of tools of how to manage that. And like, like I said, it's like making one small change and doing something different to like interrupt that like cyclical thinking that just can like spin and spin and spin and spin and spin. And so I'm like you, it's like, I got to get up and go and do something. Or like, even if it means like moving from one room to the next room. But I also have never been good at just staying at home for days on end. Like, it makes me crazy. I like being in the world and like,
and that's why I see
doing that. So
as much as I see it good, I see it as this like sort of loss in a sense where I could be going and creating something with other like-minded people, or donating my time to some cause that would require being around people. And, part of me, like I would just go do it, but like there's this fear, there's fear because even if I wear a mask and this and that, I don't want to get caught and then I have something and I don't know it and then I pass it on and then everyone's sick and then who knows what.
Yeah.
It's that,
We've been getting tested every week.
Oh, have you?
And so we have a family that my kids are really good friends with. It's one of my best friends here in Wisconsin. And her kids and my kids are like cousins. And so we like sat down and we were like, okay, like these are our parameters, these are our guidelines, like this is what we're gonna follow. And that's kind of what we've been doing. Like, I mean, pretty much we've just like, we call it our quarantine.
How is Wisconsin? I don't know how Wisconsin's handling, like, is it?
Well, we're spiking right now. And thankfully we have, what?
Not as bad as California.
I think we're like right neck and neck with you guys.
Jeez.
Our city, so I live like in Milwaukee, is a like really democratic city. We have a democratic mayor, and we have like, he just passed a resolution for the like mask mandate, and then our governor is Democratic and I love him, voted for him. But our Senate is Republican run. And so is our Supreme Court. So we had our governor in March was like, we're safer in place. Like only essential businesses are open. Like Julio's shop got shut down, same as California, like like pretty similar to what Newsom was doing. Yeah. And then our Supreme Court, so the Republican Senate sued our governor and said that his safer in place order was unjust or not right. Like he couldn't do that. And so our numbers went way down. And then the Supreme Court was like, okay, we're not safer in place anymore. We're opening up businesses, restaurants can open up again. And our numbers went right back up. So, I mean, Wisconsin, there are tons of rural like cities and towns that like the numbers are under 5%, which is good-ish, but I live in Milwaukee, which is like, there's
biggest city, isn't it?
The biggest city in Wisconsin.
You say you work right now in education, is that right?
Yeah.
So in that world, obviously schools aren't open, but I guess from that point of view, it's hard to formulate what I'm trying to say, but you see things different than someone who doesn't work in that world or that
I mean, I think so. Like I have become, let's just put it this way, like moving to Wisconsin opened up my eyes to what racism actually looks like. Milwaukee is one of the most segregated cities in the US. The inequities in education are it's ridiculous. And
right smack there in middle America.
I have become, I mean, that I've always been like a bleeding heart anyways, but like since I've moved to Wisconsin and really like since I went back to school for social work and like started learning more about like just like what like our history is and the history of the United States and the history of like social work and activism, like become way more of a bleeding heart liberal. Like I'm like, do whatever the fuck you want to do. and I'm going to do what I want to do. And I'm not going to tell you what you should do, and don't tell me what I should do, you know?
Yeah.
So.
Well, I mean, I don't want to like open up a can of worms, but I don't see, I don't see how you could rightly be the kind of person who, how do you tell someone else what they can and can't do? It just doesn't make sense.
I don't know. I have no clue. I can't even like.
It's like the baseline
I don't
rule.
know.
Yeah, the baseline rule is just you do what you do and I do what I do. But as long as no one's hurting,
treat others how you want to be treated.
If you're not hurting anyone else, go smoke crack, dude. You know, not that that's good, but go do it in your house. You know, just don't do it around kids and don't sell it to people. Right. Go do your shit alone.
But like, have you watched 13th?
No.
It's
show.
It's a documentary. It's on Netflix. It's by Ava DuVernay. I'm going to say her name wrong. But she's a filmmaker, and it's basically about the 13th Amendment and how it was never like really abolished and moved into like the pipeline to prison.
Dude, and as much as all the, you know, racism is abolished, dude, I've seen plenty of cases that were of people that are racist. I mean, as much as it sucks, I mean, there's just people.
Well, and that's the other thing is too, like for me, I'm raising 2 biracial kids, and like, although they are more white passing than not, like they're still going to experience things that I won't understand and won't understand as a white mom, and that they're going to go through as biracial kids. And, you know, that's, I think like one of the things that I've been trying to do, of course, we're all doing this right now, not all of us, but I think, like a lot of the people who I know have been doing this, is like educating myself. And so I'm reading a book called White Fragility. And one of the like best things that I learned in it so far is that racism is not an event, it's a system. And that was so like,
it's honestly, it's almost a disease, really.
Right. But like,
because we have it, even they can't get rid of it, they're just like inherently racist.
Well, and it's not like people can be racist, right? Like there's the KKK, and there's like, you know, people who like
from people. I mean, the racism is coming from people.
Well, it is, but it's so like ingrained in the systems that we live and work in.
Yeah, but you no matter how ingrained, any individual can decide on their own to engage and be a racist like to other people, or say, I don't want to do that.
Well, that's what I'm saying, is that like
it comes from people.
Like, but even the systems that like the education system is racist.
Like in what way though?
Because there are, I don't know the exact percentages on it, but
what I'm saying is the system. You're saying this. I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm only pointing out that you say the education system is racist, but really it's the people. If the people stop being racist, there's no racism.
But racism is not an event. It's not a, I don't like you. That's
human. Right?
So
it doesn't come from a tree.
Well, I totally understand what you're saying. So racism is put into place. There were systems put into place hundreds of years ago, right?
Right.
And so those systems have been perpetuated.
Oh, so what you're saying is that programs in school and like the way classrooms are orientated and then different things for kids,
or the fact that there are like 3 times as many white teachers as there are teachers of color.
Yeah.
Why are classrooms full of Black kids being taught by the majority of white teachers? who have no idea what it's like to like living in their experience, living in like,
well, yeah, I mean,
that's a racist system.
What was that? I saw a guy the other day. What's that guy's name? You know who I'm talking about. Shit. Uh, on another big podcast, there was a guy, forgetting his name. Everyone knows who I'm talking
about. Joe Rogan?
Yeah, it was on Joe Rogan's podcast.
Okay.
So one of his guests, and it's stupid that I'm forgetting his name.
Do you like Joe Rogan?
Yeah, totally. Super inspired me. Yeah.
I don't agree with like everything that he says, but like I definitely
I like that he, you know, one of the big things I like that he does is that, and he said that himself, is that he is opening the format rather than like a talk show where you have 1 minute and then a sponsor and you can't really
right
talking for 3 hours openly where you don't have to worry about a sponsor being pissed off.
Yeah.
Frees up opinion. And it doesn't tighten things into this situation where people don't want to say certain things. You know, it opens that up a little more.
Yeah.
But what I was going to say is he had a guy on there, and I'm spacing on the name. I could look it up. It was.
This is when you need your assistant to look it up for you.
I'll look it up right now. There, see.
Yeah.
Who was it? It was. Poop. I still don't see the guy's name. Ben Shapiro.
Oh, I didn't listen to it, but okay. I cannot stand that dude.
Yeah, I was gonna say so he says things like, and again, I'm gonna apologize if it's out of context, just because I know the guy's whole background, but if you just take what he said, and he's saying things like, is it completely not verbatim, like he's saying, the problem with these communities, with these children that are growing up and going to prison is that they need to just stop killing people and stop selling drugs. Like he's being just like this one-sided. He's like, that's it. If we just stop doing that. And I'm saying to myself, that's the only problem, huh? It's so one-sided. And then you compare, like he had Kevin Hart on his podcast, I don't know, a month ago, whatever.
And, I listened to that. I liked that.
And Kevin Hart was talking about the same subject, where he's saying, you know, a lot of these kids are coming out of these communities and they're selling drugs, going to prison, Black youth, because of a plethora of problems. But what he said that made sense, that the Shapiro guy seemed to be just completely unaware of, is that
because he's a moron.
Yeah. Well, you can't have someone, and they're talking about fixing the problem. You can't have someone go into this community who grew up with privilege and doesn't have all these problems and try to fix these problems. That person, and like you just said, they don't know what it's like. You need to have someone, and Kevin Hart said, you know, someone like me who grew up with these troubles and didn't engage in the gangs and the drug dealing, whatever, and stuck to something else. And
well, and not only that, but I mean, so in Milwaukee in the 80s, there was the housing crisis. And I'm not like super educated enough to really speak on any of this, but I know a little bit about it. And I know that there was, so actually more like in the 60s, they called it like the Great Migration. So a lot of Black families moved up from the South because there was tons of work in the I don't want to say factories, but there's like a word for like,
well, Milwaukee had a lot of industry like that.
Industry, thank you. Like in the industry,
barley and like bottling and things.
Yeah, like so like there was tons of work. So many families moved up from the South. So then we had these amazing neighborhoods that were booming with like Black owned businesses and Black owned like homeowners, and then that industry tanked, right? And so then in the 80s, a lot of Black families would try to go and get loans to buy homes, and the banks would not give them loans. So they would say, like, there's
because they knew that
there's this book called Evicted, and it's all about this in Milwaukee. And so like bank workers or like lenders or loan agents or whatever you call them would like have these families sit down, fill out a loan application, and then the families would leave, and then they'd write, there was like a specific number. If the family was Black, they would write that number on, and then the lenders would just pass right over those, just based on the color that they like of their skin.
This is the systemic, the term you use. So the racism.
This is the systemic racism that I'm talking about.
Well, that definitely is. But so I think it's a combination. And so you're right that system where they're, it's involved in how these employees are running their day to day. But
I mean, law enforcement is racist.
But let me ask this. So if you could magically wave a wand and remove racism from every person that is alive, would it not naturally go away?
No.
How?
Because the systems are racist. The systems are set up to benefit white people.
But if, like I said, magic wand and all the people in the world have zero racism and they're completely fair.
You have to change the whole system. You have to change the way the systems are set up.
The system, because they'd say, wow, look at this. This isn't right. I shouldn't be.
I mean, essentially, I think maybe that would happen. But what I'm saying is that, like,
people.
Say that again.
The source of racism, it stems from human beings.
Originally. But now it's so ingrained in like your everyday life. Look at Hollywood.
Oh, there's amongst racism, I've seen personally racism in hiring practice. It's not like just violent racism or anything, but it is
right. That's so much more insidious. It's
hidden and they don't even want to acknowledge it. And
exactly. That's even like the amount of like overtly racist, like what you see on like YouTube or people filming like on the subway or whatever, is so little compared to the covert ways that it weaves its way in through your everyday life.
I've seen people that are in charge of departments. In fact, I can't remember verbatim exactly, but I know that I remember being in a situation and hearing the words from a person's mouth who was a person that people like, this is someone that has a lot of power, not like the CEO of a company or anything, but enough power where they can, give people work or not. And the words that came out of their mouth were something to the effect of, that wouldn't be a good look. And what they meant was, if they hired this specific person, that when they showed up on set, that the director or the client or somebody wouldn't really like vibe with that. So it's like, they're just chalking it up to like almost like the color of like what the pattern on your shirt, like, oh, this person, but they're talking about the color of this person's skin, but they just sort of glaze over it like it wasn't a thing. And it's like, in my mind, I remember saying, you're not hiring that person because they're Black, because of how that's going to make you look to the client, but you don't know that that's even true. You're just sort of guessing that maybe that probably isn't a thing because of who the client is or something. And it's like, God, that's sickening. And
so one of the things that I'm learning now is that like my responsibility in that is to say something when I see it.
I think that's probably the best thing to do, is to not be afraid of it. If you're afraid of it,
that's the only,
no matter what situation, you're letting it live.
What? Right. Why is it? Why are my thing is like, why are you afraid of it? You know what I mean? What is there to be afraid of? I don't,
It's
that's,
actually, I think it's the opposite. It's that the person who's being racist is
mm-hmm.
afraid of something, and that's the racism is their
right.
choice.
And don't get me wrong, like, and you and I can look back on our lives, and this is one of the things that I was talking to Julio about too, is that like, we have said racist things so many times.
Yeah.
You know, and so, but what we've done as we grow older is we learn from that, and we realize like that's super fucked up. Like, yeah. I don't want to, like, that's not the foot that I want to lead with, you know?
Just
and
like
so,
what you're talking about with teaching children. It's like you teach yourself and remember to guide yourself and give yourself this reminder that, you know, that's not right.
And it's okay to say like we're learning, like we're constantly evolving, right? And so I'm not a perfect human being, and
nobody's perfect.
Like,
definitely.
Right. And what I know is that like even perfectionism is rooted in white supremacy. And so,
I mean, I don't know. I don't see how that's linked. Perfect.
Well, what it like, yeah, for sure. Because I think that
maybe if a white person is saying I'm perfect, that's kind of a form of that. If that person
but also like,
and they're saying I'm a perfect Caucasian and I'm the perfect race. Well, that's just insane.
But that's where it comes from, is like,
well, sure,
like trying to
like the Nazis
that, like,
and
right.
Hitler. He's like, everyone. If you're not,
this
me,
is
fuck
this
you,
is correct. This is how it's supposed to look, and anything that doesn't meet that standard is incorrect, right?
Totally. I mean, it's almost black and white, just like straight to the point racism, and no clouding it. It's like just flat out, like in their blood and their DNA, racist. Just, you know, Aryan Brotherhood, like Christian, like whatever they are, and that's it. And if you're not that, you die, you know.
Right.
Which is,
and I know a lot of Christians who are not like that.
No, I'm not painting Christianity. I'm just saying I think that's what the Nazi thing was. It's like, here's what you can be. I think they were like, you have to be white, and I think it was Christian. And like, I don't think they liked anyone else. They put up with the French, and they're like, if you're black or Jewish or whatever, you're you know,
right,
you get killed or put in jail or whatever happened. But isn't it mysterious that somebody, I guess we're really going down this road, but that you can be, I mean, when Hitler was born, I'm sure this question has been asked on numerous places. Did he come out of the womb and he's like, you know, goddamn Jews, you know?
No.
Or did he learn that?
No,
you're saying teaching kids. You're saying I teach my kids. Did someone teach him and say, hey Hitler, listen, Adolf, here's the deal. Start hating. How do you think?
No, his idea came from, I mean, anti-Semitism was like rampant through, like, I mean, forever, right? But even if you look at like in the days of like in the Bible, but I mean, Jesus was crucified for like.
So it's like human beings are kind of like almost.
Well, so like from what I know, and I am not a expert on the subject at all, and I'm probably gonna see this in the wrong way, but like Hitler's ideology came from nationalism, and that the Aryan race, which came from, you know, Germany and that area, was like the superior race. But I took a Holocaust literature class, and so we learned a little bit about like Hitler's rise.
I actually don't know any of the history of where that man was educated and how.
I mean, no, he's legitimately crazy.
Yeah.
And like narcissistic, and he was a scorned artist. Like he like, and he really, it's just like a total case of like short man's complex. Sorry to all my friends who are short.
I think anybody that has an idea in their head that they are like sort of supremely correct in one way or another, like, no, everyone's wrong except me. They probably got burned at some point in their history. Like at some point,
he's like an incel or something.
I guess. Or at some point, he just saw his country. He saw too many.
Well, what happened was World War I happened, and Germany like was demolished, like and basically was told by the rest of the world, we're not giving you guys any money to rebuild. We're not giving you anything. And then what happened was now Germany's left in ruins. And then Hitler comes in. He was in prison for a while, and that's when he wrote Mein Kampf or whatever. And then which was like his manifesto. And then I forget like the name, but it's like the something nationalist party or whatever. And so he came, and here's this guy, and he's like, you know, Germany's super poor. They don't have anything. This was in like the 1930s. And he starts like rising to power over time. And he's like, I'm going to have a car in every driveway. I'm going to like, this is what we're going to do. We need to restore Germany to what it once was, which was its greatness. And, you know, and it's the problem, it's the Jews' problem, and pointing the fingers at, and sounds really familiar, right?
Yeah.
Like,
well, it's like
kind of living it right now.
That's
he held this platform of like, it's all these other people's fault why Germany is in the place that it is, and I'm going to make it so much better, and I'm going to restore it to its greatness. Yeah. And yay, Germany, and this is what we're going to do, and we have to get rid of all these people. And that's basically how that like how that came from, which was like that idea of nationalism and our country, we're going to restore it to its greatness and stuff. And he painted a really shiny picture, like, cool, this guy's like telling us that we're going to like be driving cars, and we're going to have all this stuff, and we're going to be able to like, you know, our economy's going to be boosted. And so he like really played into people's fear and like and like optimism at the same time. So
it's too bad that people can't get behind a good thing as much as people get behind negative things. I feel like negativity sort of draws in attention so much more than positivity.
Right.
That's why all the papers.
You're so powerful, you know.
Well, people, when a car's on fire, everyone looks. When the person's like, you know, if you have a street, you have an intersection, on each corner of the intersection, there's something happening. On 3 of them is just like something good, like a kid selling lemonade, a kid is holding his award for his science project and whatever. And then that 4th corner, there's someone being stabbed and beaten. Everyone's going to look at the guy getting stabbed and beaten.
Right.
It's just naturally people are like, whoa, look at the horrible thing happening.
Because I think we're self-preservationists, right? And so you see something scary happening, you're like, I don't want that to happen to me, so I'm going to do everything I can do to make sure that I don't have that happen to me.
I think it's like what I'm getting at more is that just people like drama.
Well,
people
yeah, we live in a
dumpster fire.
Yeah, we live in a voyeuristic society. Like
that's why everyone likes. There's these apps like TikTok.
Yeah,
and it's like when you see this thing, you're like, oh, this guy's about to like get hit in the balls. You keep watching.
Right.
If you could somehow get people to be as curious and as interested in the positive thing and the good thing that's on page 5 of the newspaper, where it's
I wonder what the like psychological theory is behind that. Like, that would be interesting to.
I think that's really like, I think that's a deep evolutionary thing, or just people being visually and audibly attracted to something sort of dramatic or shocking.
Yeah, what is that though? Like, why? Like, what is
my instinct? I'm not an expert. I couldn't. There's probably a scientific explanation.
We're like two dumb people trying to discuss the world's
issues. Hey, what do you think, Scooter? I don't know, man. Come on now. What's the answer to that equation?
I'm not really smart. I know a little bit about this, but.
Hey, Scooter, how do you do calculus? I don't know, man. Google it.
In the end,
I'd have to say that it probably goes back pretty far, and I think that when if you think that our instincts and a lot of the things we do, if someone kicks the chair, you do that thing. Mm-hmm. There's just natural stuff that you do, and I think that many thousands of years of having to fend off animals and hunt. Mm-hmm. Are probably still in there. And if you hear,
it's like your amygdala, it's your lizard brain, which is like your.
No, I don't know.
I mean, that's what they call it. And it's like your most basic survival.
Oh.
Like it's what like it's how your instincts are. So like you have your prefrontal cortex, which is like the more advanced thinking brain, which is like responsible for executive functioning, like doing everything and then you have your like your lizard brain, which is like, I'm hungry, I have to eat, I'm in fear, like your fight or flight, like all those things is what
your heart beating and your lungs breathing.
Yeah.
But I guess if I would have to say, why do we respond to the drama? It's because we probably responded to it for so long. When we're in our cave and you hear a bear, they're
right. So it's like you want something to like activate that like adrenaline.
Well, if you hear a woman scream, if you're walking down the street and you hear a woman like just death, screech.
Has that happened to you?
I've been maybe like 2 or 3 times in my life. I've heard like somebody have like just the full on like their kid just got taken type of scream.
Was
like
it when I was kicking your ass? Did you hear my scream?
I heard my own scream.
I've had that scream before. One time Enzo escaped from my brother's house, and he lives on like a really busy street, and Enzo was like 2 years old, and we were like so good about. Enzo was an insane child. Like he was the kid that at 11 months climbed up to the top of the bunk bed and jumped off.
What?
Yes, I have PTSD from parenting him.
Yeah.
So anyway, like long story short, we were so good about making sure that the front door was locked, and it was like a kind of a chaotic moment. We were all just coming home. My brother was taking care of his kids. I was like putting groceries in his kitchen, and I hear my brother come out and he goes, "Oh shit." Oh, no. And I knew from
the tone of the "oh shit," you can usually tell it's not a.
And so, and Dave is like cool, calm, and collected guy, and he's a he's a firefighter. So like this is what he does, is responds to emergencies. He's like desensitized from these things. So he's already like out in the front yard, and I come running out, and Dave's like, "We don't know if he's out here." And my like mother instincts come out, and I knew he was out there. And I ran down the street, and I just like gutturally screamed. Like I didn't know the voice was my voice. Like I was like, who's making that sound? And I like realized like, oh, that's me. That's coming from me. And I screamed because there was a huge truck stopped in the middle of the road with the door swung open. And I thought that Enzo had gotten hit by a car. And it was at like 5 o'clock in the evening, which was like rush hour traffic in San Jose. So, everywhere is rush hour traffic in San Jose. And he had run across the street, and some man, he was like 2 years old, and some man stopped and saw this little kid running, and all of a sudden I see him, like this big guy, carrying Enzo back across the street.
God, really?
It was probably the worst moment of my life. Like, I thought my child had died.
Yeah.
So
that's what, like, it's, I think that's a little more personal, but it's that, I think that goes back to the answer, is where do these things come from? And, it's like fear of death, fear of survival, or desire to survive.
yeah.
That's all that stuff that's like, we probably won't ever get rid of, because it's still there and it still comes up, just not as often as it may have,
right,
300 years ago or something. But, or I guess I'm probably talking about like 1,000 years ago.
No, and that's like, there's so there is Maslow's hierarchy of needs, which is like, it's a triangle, and at the very bottom is like your basic needs, and at the very top is self-actualization, which is like, who you are, like you're able to like maneuver through the world. And I'm sure, like, if a psychologist was watching this, they'd be like, that bitch doesn't know what she's talking about. But like, it's like a thing. And so you can't move up the steps of the hierarchy of needs until your basic needs are taken care of. And then you can move to the next step. And then you can't move to the next step until that step is taken care of. Mm-hmm. So a lot of people aren't able to like function at these higher levels of self, because they're really just trying to focus on making sure they have a roof over their heads and food in their stomach and clothing on their back, And so that's, I think, it, like, I don't know, like what you're saying is like, that sparked that. Like,
yeah,
I think that is a lot of people's motivations, is because they're really just trying to like take care of their everyday basic shit, that they don't have time to think about all that other shit,
Yep. Okay.
So,
Liza Cohen, Educator. Hey, do you want to point people in any direction to maybe either check out something that you have and to check you out, or to like maybe even point them in a direction to something that you think is good for people in general?
So I wouldn't say like anything for personal gain or anything. I would say right now, the books that I'm reading, and I suggest everybody read these books, and buy them from a Black-owned or person of color bookstore, because we need to get money back into the hands of Black people and people of color, and really support those communities right now. So I'm reading White Fragility, and you can Google that. Robin, I forget what her last name is. And it's basically looking at how like we have, as white people, have been like, what our privilege is, and how we have supported racist systems, and then like what we can do about it. And then Ibram X. Kendi, who is a professor and author, and he's written a bunch of books, but most importantly right now he wrote How to Be Anti-Racist. And I think that it's really important as white people that we start doing the work, so that like Black people and people of color don't have to carry this weight on their shoulders anymore, and that it's up to us to change these systems. And then just donate your time and money to organizations that are going to uplift Black communities right now, because they really need our support. And specifically, if you're looking in Milwaukee, Block by Block is a really great organization. There's tons of women-led organizations. And if you're a white person, do your homework, because that's what I had to do. So Google is a wonderful place, and you can Google that shit.
That's what I do. I Google that shit on
like, it's not hard. You have the world at your fingertips, and really there's no excuse to be ignorant, because if you want to find out how to change the starter in your car, you can go on YouTube and figure it out. And if you want to learn how to be a better person, you can look up the information for it. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you, Liza. Thank you very much. I appreciate your time, and I'm very happy to have you on here. And I appreciate your positive, loving personality.
Thanks, Alex.
Yeah.
It was fun talking to you. I'm glad we got to do it.
Me too.
All right.
Bye, everyone. 1978 podcast. Check out the next one. Dropping on Wednesdays. See ya.
Peace.